have parentheses or brackets, that's where they are. And if you don't have parentheses or brackets, well, that's just the page number. 128, Shabbat Hamalka.
Shabbat Shalom. Welcome those who are joining us here in this chapel, in this holy space, and all who are joining us virtually. We're so glad that you're with us too. We feel your presence so much. If you are praying from this Siddur, Mishkan Tefillah, you'll see at the bottom of the page some page numbers. If this book is new to you, you'll find that we're praying a lot in the Hebrew. The transliteration on the right side of the page, there's translation under those prayers, and on the left side of the page you'll find poetry or modern readings to help us try to understand or get inside of the ideas of the prayers that we are praying. And at the bottom of the page are page numbers. If you have two numbers, it's the numbers inside the bracket that we'll be calling, or just the number that we call. So tonight, we'll be blessed with the words of Torah offered by three of our incredible 10th graders, Ruth, Abel, and Griffin, but I will introduce them more fully later. We'll talk more about that later. But now you know what's coming. This is the Shabbat before Shavuot, one of our three major festivals of the year. So we know that next week, something really, really big is going to happen. We're going to stand at the foot of a mountain, and we're going to receive Torah. We're going to re-enter into covenant. And so here we are, if we could picture ourselves just a few days before that. We've been there for quite some time, near the foot of the mountain in our narrative. We've been in our tents. We've been wondering what's next. And maybe the lightning has begun to start, or maybe the thunder has just started to roll. We start to hear and see things that are kind of magnificent. And we know that something big is about to happen, and we have a sense of what we have to prepare for. Isn't that always the way? That next week is something really, really big. A big test, or a big presentation, or a big performance, or a big thing we have to do for work, a big project, a big report is due. And that's what we're freaking out about right now. right? That thing that we have to do next week, and we freak out so well. And we get all of our things together, and we make PowerPoint presentations, and we study, and we memorize, and we get all of our papers in order, and we make the copies, and we put together the agenda. But there is a way that we need to prepare for what is happening next week, whatever that thing is, whether it's at the foot of the mountain, or sitting behind a desk, or taking a test. And that's the preparation that we do on Shabbat. To just breathe and be, and to clear out all of the frenetic energy, all of the doing and the tasking. Because when we show up next week, whenever next week starts again, and things are asked of us again, the only way that we show up as our whole and beautiful selves is if we give ourselves space to find the quiet, to remember and remind ourselves who we are, to re-meet ourselves. Because that is the only self that will be ready to show up as your whole beautiful fullness of being, this person created in the image of God. Your paper clips, you'll buy them, it's fine. But will you be there? And so we meet this Shabbat once a week. We meet up with it, and it gives us a chance to stop tasking and just start being. And so tonight, maybe we'll let ourselves slip slowly into this place where we get to re-meet our whole selves, unedited, unpolished, unchanged, to be presentable to the world around us, just you, just this community, just right now. And so we enter into Shabbat with some breath, with some joy, with some song, with some space and time and readiness and vulnerability, so that we can be permeable to all that's about to happen, so that we can be prepared, not to do, but just to be. On page 130, Lechu Naranana, we begin with the Psalms of Shabbat.
Mekad mafana
With all the things that we carry into this room, we have all of these songs to go through as a process, checking off all of it. It's like when you get to someone's house, maybe you haven't been there many times, so you don't know what their usual vibe is or their minhag, to use the nice Jewish word for it. So you're not sure if you're going to take off your shoes. Put the shoes on or shoes off household. You're going to ask, you're going to wait, take a moment to take them off. Not sure if you're going to sit on a couch or by their table. Take all this time to figure each other out in this space. And it's in this moment, especially here at CE, I feel like we finally settled down next to each other. Our shoes are off. We know what's coming next. We've welcomed one another into the space. And suddenly we're at home. And then we get to Lecha Dodi, where we invite our most important guest on this eve, the Spirit of Shabbat, to come in with us. Let's take a moment to breathe and settle so we can be fully present and ready to welcome her, our Shabbos bride, shoes on or off, on the couch, at the table, wherever she may be. Page 138. Kaddish. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, Yalmani Barach, Yiruteh, Yamlik Machuteh, B'chayechom, Yomechom, B'chayidechom, B'tisrael, Ba'ala, U'b'smar Bari, B'miru, Ishnei Rabbah Mevorach, Le'olam Olam Le'hamaya, Yibarach, Yishtabach, Yipa'ar B'Ramah V'Yinaseh, V'Yitalal, V'Yitalel, V'Yitalal, Shemei Dekashah, Le'elam Nikom Yechata V'Shirata, Tushbechata V'Nechemata, Damira Belma, V'Miru, Baruch Hu et Adonai Mevorach. Baruch Adonai Mevorach, Le'olam Va'ed. Please be seated. Ma'avin yom u'mei layla, mavdil ben yom u'ben layla, anayt ha'ot shmo, el chai v'kayam, tamid yimochan leinu milveh, baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'arif aravim. 150.
In a moment, we'll turn to Hashkivenu on page 116. In this prayer, we ask to be able to go to sleep in peace at night and to wake up in the morning in peace. It is probably the simplest of all of our prayers, but maybe also the most elusive. It should be the one that's maybe the easiest to attain, but it's a hard truth to hold on to, that sense of peace. So tonight we pray for anyone who waits anxiously for sleep to come in the dark, or feels that they have to stay awake and stand watch. For anyone who knows that the darkness might bring danger for them. For anyone who fears that it might last into daybreak. Whether they are us, or our neighbors, or strangers, or somebody all the way across the ocean, we ask that God spread over us, and we spread our arms over each other, our hearts wrap around each other in this prayer for safety, for peace, for all those who feel vulnerable, or anxious, or afraid on this night. May we and they fall asleep tonight with a sense of peace. And then we'll move into our prayer for healing, Misha Barach. And in that space, we'll bring to mind all of those people in our lives who are struggling, who are sick or in pain, whose bodies are aching, or hearts feel broken, or maybe their spirits feel lonely or lost. Anyone who doesn't feel whole and isn't sure if they have to go that feeling by themselves. And so we'll pray words of healing, and we'll pray for their refuah shlema, that they are returned to wholeness. We'll also let that prayer just creep inside of us and remind us that they are not alone, because we exist and are thinking about them. And maybe we're reaching out to them, maybe even after this service. Maybe you're even texting them right now. I don't know. Maybe they'll appreciate that. And so we'll turn to our healing prayer at that time. If you're joining us virtually, We invite you to place the names of anyone you're praying for into the platform that you're joining us through. And in this space, we'll say their names in the midst of our healing prayer. Hashkivenu is on page 160. We pray for these, our beloveds.
Turn to page 162 and rise for the Shamru. We will continue afterward with the silent Amidah on the following pages. Shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat et ha-Shabbat לדורותם בריתו in this community, in this space, because it is day 44. And by the time it is Shabbat again, it will also be Shavuot. Day 49 will be behind us. We're this close to the mountaintop, to receiving our Torah. It's a joyous experience indeed. And since we are rising towards the mountain, we will also rise for this experience. See what I did there? We are both in the handouts that are being passed around. You guys know exactly what you're doing. And on page 570 for the blessing, we'll begin at the top of the handout.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm so glad to share with you that tonight we will hear words of Torah from 3 of our outstanding 10th grade students, Ruth Doroguster, Abel Wiener, and Griffin Crombach. Our students study all year long, right? They build a body of knowledge, they explore, they take risks, they get to know each other, they make meaning out of things all year long about Jewish tradition. They connect with their teachers and with Torah, and we don't always get the benefit of learning what they've been learning. And so tonight, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what our 10th graders have been learning, and then I'm going to invite them to speak to us and to teach us directly. So throughout this year, our students learned that Judaism is a dynamic belief system constantly being shaped by those who study and practice it. Our students deepened their understanding of Jewish theology from the Bible to the present and cultivated their own personal understandings of God and faith. In their exploration, our 10th graders visited other houses of worship as well and met with other spiritual leaders in our neighborhood and beyond. Through these pursuits, They deepened their relationship with Judaism and their connection to one another. These 3 students prepared these words for tonight, working together and working on their own to craft a thoughtful expression of their own evolving theologies and the questions with which they continue to grapple. So we will hear from Ruth, and then Griffin, and then Abel.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. This week's Torah portion is called Bamidbar, which means literally in the wilderness. The Israelites have begun their journey and find themselves, surprise, surprise, in the wilderness, where God takes a census of all 12 tribes and assigns them individual responsibilities. The Levites are the only tribe excluded from the census and are instead assigned to serve the tabernacle. This is because they didn't worship the golden calf with everyone else a few chapters back. It's a parsha about consistency, or the lack thereof, and it raises questions that are in line with our studies this year. Our 10th grade class, as Rabbi Colin said, spent this year focusing on theology, both that of Judaism and other faiths. And as part of the study, we visited churches around the neighborhood and spoke to a varied cast of religious leaders. Of course, we bombarded them with questions and came away with some interesting answers, as well as a few new questions. We spoke to Reverend Stephen D. Policus of All Saints Episcopal Church, who enlightened us to the fact that Christians who convert to another religion are still considered Christian, but converts to Christianity are fully recognized. Rabbi Timoner, who was with us, pointed out that converts of Judaism are likewise still considered Jewish, or converts out of Judaism. My classmates and I found this pretty poignant, as in our discussions of our own faith, many of our class found comfort in our Jewish identity purely by name and as passed down through our families. Reverend Policus also described faith as a journey by chronicling one of his parishioners trailing away from Christianity and later finding her way back to God, but remaining Christian in his eyes the whole way. This is comparable to the events of the census in Bamidbar through the Levites, the only tribe of Israel left uncounted. This idea of being counted or recognized through changes in faith raises important questions of identity. For the Levites, it brought privilege as well as disadvantage. The Levites were the only tribe to make it to the Promised Land, and being priests had arguably the closest relationship to God, but they received no promise of land from God and thus had no physical manifestation of their identity. In a more modern context, the gifts and burdens of the Levites apply to conversion. What does it mean to be identified for your faith, and for some identifiers to remain with you as that faith changes? In our conversations about our own faith, many of my classmates expressed their faith as being informed by their Jewish identity, that simply being recognized as part of their Jewish family and the larger Jewish community was enough to tie them in. In my own exploration of faith, I found the strongest connection through prayer. My ideas of God may be as shifty as the spring weather, but I do know that saying the Shema and the Ve'ahavta every day brings me a feeling of peace and certainty of my place in the world that I don't doubt for a minute. Nominally, my faith could bear no relation to that of any other Jew, but the fact that I find meaning and value in the same set of words that have been sung by generations suggests to me enough commonality to unite us in some way. This unity, as well as division, is apparent also in the census. God ostracizes the Levites by excluding them from the count while binding the rest of the tribes together under a common punishment for practicing idolatry. However, the other 11 tribes are also divided in the sense that they had differing obligations in their journey ahead. This division represents a squeamishness I noticed in my classmates as well as felt myself throughout the year. As 10th graders, we've been traversing the wilderness of theology, and visiting different houses of worship as part of that was often awkward or uncomfortable. Confronting not only your own faith, but others so different to your own, all in the same night, can be a challenge to our ability to understand the multitudinousness of having a relationship with God. This first census takes place just as the Israelites begin their journey through the wilderness, and the book of Numbers ends with another census as they near the end of that journey, yielding vastly different results. The counting of the Jewish people reminds us that as we journey through our own wilderness, our understanding of faith will change, but we will continue to be recognized.
When the Jewish people were at the base of Mount Sinai, they felt tired, afraid, and lost. They were a people who were in Egypt, and who for so much of their lifetimes didn't feel like God was ever with them. Quite recently, though, they had seen God firsthand, and but still they were hesitant to believe after faith had been pounded out of them for so long. And then, when Moses went up on the mountain, they felt abandoned again. They were waiting and waiting for some sign that God was with them, and they were simply waiting for too long. They needed something or somebody to turn to, and idolatry and the golden calf just seemed to be the best choice. But after Moses came down with the 10 Commandments, and everyone turned back to God, people's mistake caused some problems further down the line. They were, as is going to be read this weekend, counted in censuses that determined that they would die in the desert and not get to go to the Holy Land, just for a mistake they made in a difficult time. The story of the golden calf and its repercussions seems to me a contradiction to what the 10th graders learned from Rabbi Timoner at one point this year during our visit to All Saints Episcopal Church, that people who convert out of Judaism are still considered Jewish by Jewish law, like it said. This feels like a contradiction because in the Torah, people who renounced their belief in Judaism and worshipped under God were punished for it. Worshipped another God were punished for it. But nowadays, people who do the same are given the grace to return to Jewish life and are not punished. I find it quite interesting that whether a person likes it or not, if they are born Jewish, people will consider them Jewish for the rest of their life. What if a person does not wish to be considered Jewish? What if they want to align themselves somewhere else? Do we as Jews fundamentally not respect that and just call them Jewish? It doesn't feel quite right to me, but I do like that Judaism is leaving space for a person to explore other religions and come back. This is another contradiction, this time in my mind. As I've explored theology this year, I've found that it is an extremely complex and sometimes difficult thing for me to think about, full of contradictions. To me, theology is kind of like breathing. When I think about it too much, it becomes harder to do and feels unpleasant. But still, over the course of the year, I've been tempted to think more about my own theology. For anyone, to think about theology is a difficult task, as there are so many of these contradictions I was talking about. For instance, when the 10th grade class visited a few churches, we kept asking the religious leaders one important question. How do you reconcile bad things happening in the world with the idea of having an all-powerful God? This is a huge contradiction that it seems everyone has to tackle on their theological journey, and the answers we got were far from conclusive. For me, I think everything happens for a reason, and that bad things happen to produce good people. If it weren't for war, oppression, and sickness, we wouldn't have amazing leaders who rise above it all, and the ordinary people who tell people they love them in hard times. I believe that bad things happen to put people on a path to greatness. That's a small glimpse of my belief in God, and I urge you to think about yours too, as this year's exploration opened my eyes to a world I had never thought about.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Okay. Cool. So, this afternoon, I was on the train coming back from school and putting the final touches on this drash, and I ran into a group of Chabadniks who were asking me to put on tefillin right as I was finishing up the drash. And so I explained to them that I was finishing the drash, but if you give me a minute, I can put it on. And so they asked me, where are you giving your drash tonight? I was like, I'm giving it at CBE, which is a Reform synagogue in Park Slope. And their response to that was, what's Reform Judaism? Which gives me the perfect segue into my drash. And so, right now, the place that we've been talking about, where we are in the year, is between the Exodus from Egypt and getting the Torah at Mount Sinai, in the Omer. And during this period of time, the Israelites didn't know really what God truly was. They didn't have the Torah yet. They sort of had this idea of God from the Exodus and from their past history, like before the 400 years that they were in slavery. But they didn't have the framework for understanding God that we have today in the Torah. And so they didn't know. And that's kind of what I want to be talking about today, especially in relation to what we were learning all year at Yachad. And so my first major takeaway from the year is that really you can't know. And you're never going to be able to know what the right theology is. And that means that over the course of your life, your theology is always going to be evolving and transforming as you do. And maybe through that process, you're getting closer to some truth that fits right for you. And so during the year, we read a lot of different ideas from a variety of different theologians, and they all had something different to say. Everyone, different things to say. And none of them were definitive in what they were saying. They all sort of left space for the possibility that they were wrong, or that there was more out there that they couldn't totally explain. And I think that this arises from an inability of humans in general to truly understand what God is, because we're like here and God is everywhere, and it's hard to see all of God at once, and we can't grasp it. And so the way that we sort of approach that is through the creation of our own theologies that transforms with us as we can see different aspects throughout our life. And I think that this was also really interestingly conveyed through talking to the other different religious groups, because a lot of them said things that were both very similar to Judaism, and it was like, oh, that's an idea that I'm very familiar with. But then there were ideas that were vastly different from the Jewish understanding that we had been learning about at Yontan. And I think throughout talking to these different people, I sort of, my realization about it, I don't know if this is necessarily right because we can't know, but my sense was that there's sort of God in the middle and all of the religions are around trying to see like what's in the middle, and none of them can totally see it, but through trying to look at it, they're able to bring meaning to life. And even on the train, it happens, where even within Judaism, there's vastly different theologies, and neither are really wrong. They're just sort of different aspects of the same thing. And so as we continue going through the Omer and get closer to Shavuot, I encourage us to sort of lean in a little bit to the not knowing and see what can come of that and the faith that's required to not know.
What happens if you're already this wise? First of all, thank you. Yasher to each of you. Thank you so much for taking the time to try to articulate and put words to something that is by design ineffable, right? Unpronounceable, unexplainable, inexplicable, sure, unsayable. It's hard to, against the backdrop of history, with our own lived experience, take our guts and take our intellects and take our heart and try to put words to something that is not meant to necessarily be spoken out loud. But here you have come and spoken out loud something that gives us a portal, a doorway in to speak about something that we don't really talk about a lot. We don't talk about God a lot, what we believe and what we don't believe, and what are the things, the barriers between who we are and what we believe and what we might believe. What's stopping us? What makes it hard for us to believe? Or in what do we even believe? And so I'm just really very grateful for you to be willing and vulnerable with your own theology to bring it here into this space and lift us up on this night. And so before we close this piece of it, I want to say this. So as Abel said, as you each said in your own way, our grapplings with God are always unfinished. Our wrestlings, they evolve. A child's theology or understanding of God is not going to be the same as when they become a teenager and grow in independence. And it's not going to be the same as when they go out into the world on their own, or when they are aging, or when they are closer to dying. Those things, it's going to change our relationship with God. And I am still grappling with all of these ideas. I'm going to share something with you because what I'm next going to do is ask you to share too, but not with everybody. So I would say I am still very much grappling with what I believe about God. I would say that I am equal parts a person who can stand on a shore of a beach with a huge ocean expanse in front of me and talk to God and ask God to hold me and hold things for me and feel God's love and feel God talking, or at the very least listening. I'm equal parts that person as I am a person who kind of thinks maybe we are accidents of science and we started as sludge and then eventually we became this like weird thing with gangly limbs that walks around the earth, desiring that there is something bigger than ourselves. And truly, I am passionately here, and sometimes on the same day, and sometimes at the same time. I know that when my mom was sick, I got down on my knees and prayed, and I didn't even know if I was talking to a God that I believed in. I know that when I connect with another human being in a real and meaningful way, I feel that there's got to be something bigger to us and to this. I know things intellectually, I know things emotionally, sometimes I know things physically, and I know that I don't know, as you said. So first, thank you for asking us to talk about what is hard, and what makes it hard for us to believe, and what gives us holy food for thought. Now, if you would, if you're brave as our teachers tonight, to turn to a partner, someone near you, and just say, we're not going to stay here a long time, just a couple of minutes. What is something you believe, or something you don't believe about God, or godliness, or something bigger than ourselves? Or how, or when, or why has your theology or what you believed changed over time? Something you believe or want to talk about for the next 2 minutes. Go. Thursday night, we'll be standing together at the foot of a mountain, trying to be in relationship with God, whoever that God is for you. Thank you for opening a door for us, and thank you for walking through it together as a community. We'll continue with landing page 586. We invite you to rise. Alleluia, shall reign out. Before we move to our concluding prayer of Kaddish Yatom, I just want to say thank you to Nate Jaffe, who is here supporting us in person, and Stas Olshansky, who's providing audio and online support so that we can be everywhere. And so we turn to memory. Memory is sometimes what gives us that feeling, maybe, that we're not the first ones here and we're not alone here. That maybe there are those that keep traveling with us in some sort of energy who aren't here anymore for us to hold on to physically, for us to hang on to and draw close and laugh with and hear their voice again, and how hard that is for us. But if we are part of all things, maybe they are part of us. And when you tell their story and when you say their name here in this room, we hear their names recited, so their legacy is here again, it's present. Their memory matters here and lifts us. If you are in a period of Shiva, the first week of your loss, we want to invite you to rise and share their name with us. If you are in a period of Shloshim, the first month of your loss, we want to invite you to rise and share their name.
My mother watching me.
If this is the first year, Shana, of your loss, I want to invite you to rise and share their name. If this is a yahrzeit for you, the anniversary of a death, we invite you to rise and share their name.
Lenore Greenberg Winslow.
Lenny Rosenbluth.
Oda Wapton. Erwin Leno. James Brooks.
We now rise to surround you. And we remember these names in our congregation in their period of Shloshim. Lori Reichman, grandmother of Emma Thaler Scott and Dexter Scott, and great-grandmother of Murphy and Simon. Diana Levitt, mother of Julie Marks. Juliet Diller, mother of Matthew Diller, mother-in-law of Kit Kennedy, and grandmother of Michael and Peter. Mark Sylvan, father of John Sylvan, father-in-law of Marnie Burke, and grandfather of Simone, Ariel, and Ben. Tiffany Watson, sister-in-law of Rabbi David Adelson and Lynn Harris, and aunt of Bee and Sam. And though the burial has not yet taken place, we're thinking of Sidney Levine, father of Ian Levine, father-in-law of Tamar Renault, and grandfather of Maya and Liam. And we remember on their yahrzeit Anna Aberson, Rose Phillips Abrishkin, Ray Applebaum, Molly Barron, Eric Baum, James Brooks, Arthur Butcher, Dr. J. Cornell, Sylvia Corwin, Yaakov Farhai, Herbert Carl Fetterman, Rose Feinstein, Joseph Feuerstein, Brenda Fireman, Ben Fireman, Maurice Goldberg, Carrie Goldsmith, Lenore Greenberg, Elsie Gutman, Jesse Gutman, Philip Hirschfield, Shirley Holab, Laita Israelite, Jack Kane, Marilyn Katz, Abraham Kotzison, Bodie Kaufman, Philip Levinowitz, Abraham Levy, Sarah Levy, Doris Mandelbaum, Erwin Mayer, Jean Miel, Saul Morris, Max Muchnick, F. Whitlock Newman, Agnes Tibor Oranger, Norman Price, Anna Ray, Seymour Rosenblatt, Leonard Rosenbluth, Mary Schein, Diane Sagner, Doris Stahl, Hyman Stiefeld, Rabbi Sidney Tedeschi, Florence Van Ralty, Andrew Velez, Sadie Lulke Weintraub, Sidney Wertheimer, Pauline Wolf, Adolf Yokel. On page 294, we turn to, 598. On page 598, we turn to Kaddish Yatom. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shmei Rabbah, B'yalma tivorach yurtei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah v'rach le'olam u'amei hamayah. Yitbarach, Vishtabach, Vitpa'ar, Vitromam, Vitnaseh, Vitadar, Vitale, Vitalal, Shemei Dekudesha, Brechu. La'ela Mikol, Birchata, V'shirata, Tushbechata, V'nechemata, Da'miran, Bi'alma, V'imru, Amen. Yehei Shlama, Rabba, Min Shemaya, V'chayim, Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom, B'murma, Huya Aseh Shalom, Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'al Kol Yoshvetano, V'imru, Amen. May the one who creates peace on high bring peace and comfort to all who mourn. We say together.
Page 625. Don Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Ve'en Asad Ha'Chesed Asan Shemo
Shabbat Shalom. Please join us for Kiddush.